Look at the map of the world, and one country immediately stands out: Russia. Stretching across 11 time zones from the Baltic Sea to the Pacific Ocean, it is by far the largest nation on Earth, covering over 17 million square kilometers. This isn't just a geographical fact, it's a testament to a centuries-long, relentless drive for expansion. But how did a small principality in Eastern Europe grow into this colossal empire? This is the story of how Russia gained its immense size, a tale of ambition, conquest, and the endless pursuit of security in warm water ports. Our journey begins not in Moscow, but further south, with the emergence of Kievan Rus' in the 9th century. This loose federation of East Slavic tribes, influenced by Viking traders and Byzantine Christianity, formed the spiritual and cultural cradle of what would become Russia, Ukraine, and Belarus. But this early state, rich in culture, was politically fragmented. Then came the cataclysm, the Mongol invasion in the 13th century. For over 2 centuries, various Russian principalities, including the nascent Moscow, endured the Mongol yoke. While brutal, Mongol rule inadvertently strengthened Moscow. As tribute collectors for the Golden Horde, Moscow's princes gained wealth and political experience, allowing them to consolidate power, eventually becoming the heart of Russian resistance. This period saw the gathering of the Russian lands as Moscow absorbed neighboring territories. By the late 15th century, under rulers like Ivan III, known as Ivan the Great, Moscow had thrown off the Mongol yoke, expanded its territory significantly, and laid the foundations for a unified Russian state. Ivan even began to embrace the idea of Moscow as the Third Rome, a spiritual successor to Constantinople, hinting at future imperial ambitions. The 16th century saw Ivan IV, the Terrible, further expand Russian domains. His conquests of the Kazan and Astrakhan Khanates secured control over the entire Volga River, opening vital trade routes and pushing Russia's borders further east. Crucially, it also set the stage for the massive eastward expansion into Siberia. The push into Siberia, largely driven by Cossack adventurers and fur traders, was astonishingly rapid. It was less about military conquest of established states and more about absorbing vast, sparsely populated territories rich in valuable furs. By the mid-17th century, Russian explorers had reached the Pacific Ocean, laying claim to a continent-sized expanse of land. This expansion was driven by economic opportunity and the relatively low resistance from indigenous groups. The 18th century brought 2 of Russia's most transformative rulers, Peter the Great and Catherine the Great. Peter, obsessed with westernization, recognized Russia's need for warm water ports to truly become a European power. His long and bloody Great Northern War against Sweden secured vital access to the Baltic Sea, leading to the founding of his grand new capital, St. Petersburg. Russia was now firmly a major European player. Catherine the Great continued this ambitious expansion. Her wars against the Ottoman Empire gained Russia crucial control over the Black Sea, including the annexation of Crimea, a region whose strategic importance endures to this day. Simultaneously, through the infamous partitions of Poland, Russia absorbed enormous territories in the west, gaining millions of new subjects and pushing its borders deep into Central Europe. By the 19th century, the Russian Empire was a colossus, stretching from Warsaw to Vladivostok. Its victory over Napoleon in 1812 cemented its status as a major European power. The 19th century also saw Russia's relentless Great Game expansion into Central Asia, driven by a quest for resources like cotton and a strategic rivalry with the British Empire. This secured vast new territories in the south, while further gains in the Far East consolidated its Pacific frontage. The First World War and the Russian Revolution brought monumental upheaval. The empire collapsed, and many Western territories gained independence. However, the formation of the Soviet Union soon after saw the reconsolidation of most of the former imperial lands under a new ideological banner. The USSR, driven by a global communist vision, continued to expand its influence. Following World War II, the Soviet Union solidified its western borders, incorporating the Baltic states and parts of Poland and Finland, establishing its sphere of influence deep into Eastern Europe. This marked the territorial zenith of the Russian state, arguably the largest empire in human history. The late 20th century brought another seismic shift: the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991. Overnight, Russia lost vast swathes of its former territory as 14 new independent states emerged. From being a sprawling superpower, Russia was suddenly a significantly smaller, though still geographically enormous, nation. This contraction sparked intense geopolitical shifts and a deep-seated desire in Moscow to regain influence in its near abroad. Under Vladimir Putin, Russia has increasingly sought to reassert its regional dominance. This is manifested in military interventions in Georgia, the annexation of Crimea from Ukraine, and ongoing pressure and influence over countries like Belarus. The motivations are complex: protecting ethnic Russian populations, securing strategic buffer zones against NATO expansion, and maintaining access to vital trade routes and resources. These actions, driven by a historical memory of empire and a perceived need for security, continue to shape Russia's borders and its relationship with the world today. From a small Muscovite principality surrounded by rivals, Russia's expansion was a continuous, multi-directional process. It was driven by a complex interplay of factors: the constant quest for secure borders and buffer zones, the insatiable need for warm water ports for trade and naval power, the lure of vast natural resources like furs and minerals, and a powerful sense of national and spiritual destiny. The result is the Russia we see today, a country whose enormous size is not just a geographical fact, but a living historical artifact. It's a land shaped by centuries of geopolitical ambition, often brutal conquest, and the enduring legacy of a nation perpetually striving for its place on the global stage. Understanding how it got so big is key to understanding its past, present, and future.